The preponderance of evidence suggests optimal vegetable consumption is 5 servings per day.
5 servings of vegetables? 5? But what if you hate vegetables? Surely the stress of having to choke back a food you hate every single day would negate some of the long-term health benefits of eating these veggies. Healthy eating patterns should not be stressful and should not trigger the gag reflex. So let's talk about how you can prepare these vegetables in ways that you actually enjoy them and how you can leverage the psychology of food preference to your advantage. Yes, you actually can learn to like vegetables, maybe even love them. Our taste preferences are partially controlled by our taste buds, little receptors on our tongues and other areas of our mouths that can detect 5 basic tastes: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami, a savory taste. These taste receptors send signals to our brains, which interpret the taste and sends a message back to our bodies to tell it how to react. Which is why what we like is not as simple as what our taste buds tell us, because our brains also consider our emotions and memories, even what we were expecting that food to taste like. So our past experiences and feelings influence how we enjoy that taste. When it comes to developing a liking for vegetables, your best strategy will depend on the reason why you don't like them in the first place. You might have a gene that makes them literally taste more bitter. You might have negative associations with them, so you just don't like them. You might simply just not be used to eating them. Or you might not have found a recipe that makes them taste good to you. The cool thing is that no matter why you don't like vegetables, scientific studies actually give us guidance on how to overcome it. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cabbage, kale, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, turnips have a class of phytonutrients called glucosinolates. And actually, it's the glucosinolates and their metabolites in cruciferous vegetables that are responsible for most of the health benefits we get from eating this vegetable family. Glucosinolates reduce risk of cancer, improve glycemic control in type 2 diabetics, delay progression of osteoarthritis, and reduce risk of cardiovascular disease. And some specific glucosinolate metabolites, like sulforaphane, have additionally been shown to reduce risk of neurodegenerative disease like Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. So it's really beneficial to consume them. And what's fascinating is that the taste of cruciferous vegetables is influenced by your genes. The glucosinolates in cruciferous vegetables chemically resemble a molecule called phenylthiocarbamide, or PTC for short. And PTC has a very unique property in that it can taste incredibly bitter depending on what variant of a taste receptor gene you have, or it can taste like nothing at all. The taste receptor gene in question is called HTAS2R38. And about 70% of us have variants of this gene that allow us to detect a bitter flavor in cruciferous vegetables. About 30% of people can't taste that bitterness at all, but about 20% of people have 2 copies of a variant of this gene. It's called the PAV-PAV haplotype. That means that bitterness flavor is dialed all the way up. If that's you, you are much more likely to hate these vegetables, as well as eat fewer vegetables in general and gravitate towards sweet treats. That's what's called being a bitter super taster. But never fear, because it is still possible to develop a liking for these bitter vegetables. Experimenting with different cooking methods can completely change your enjoyment of these vegetables. For example, boiling can actually enhance the bitterness, so you might prefer these vegetables roasted or grilled or stir-fried instead. Or you could try blanching them to leach out some of these bitter compounds before cooking them in your recipe. To do this, bring water to a boil in a large pot. Add your veggies to the pot and cook for 1 to 2 minutes. Then immediately transfer to ice water to stop the cooking process. Then you can cook those vegetables however the recipe calls for it, but they will be less bitter at the end because some of the bitter compounds were leached out in that blanching. That reminds me of a joke. Why is broccoli a royal vegetable? Because it has crowns. I hope that mom joke earned your subscribe. You might also find it helpful to balance out some of that bitterness with astringency, like some lemon juice or a vinaigrette, or with some sweetness, like adding a little bit of honey or maple syrup. Remember that even if you have to compromise on some nutrients for taste, including cruciferous vegetables in your diet in any form is beneficial for your health. Eating them with slightly fewer nutrients is vastly preferable to not eating them at all. What if you're just not used to eating very many vegetables? Studies show that with repeated exposure to foods that we innately dislike, we can not only lose our aversions to them, but actually over time develop a preference for them. In fact, we can learn to like new flavors after trying them as few as 4 or 5 times. Unfamiliar foods can cause us to feel anxious and suspicious. But the more we're exposed to that food, the more familiar that food's flavor becomes. We gain trust in that food and eventually a liking for it. The importance of familiarity for taste preference is explained through something called positive associative learning, meaning we associate positive experiences with that food. And while taste exposure is the strongest way to build a preference for that food, there's other types of positive experiences that can help us to develop a liking for a new food, such as eating that food in a positive social environment. Think family dinners or meals with friends. Additionally, if a food makes us feel good after eating it, let's say it makes us feel full or gives us energy, that reinforces positive associations and helps us develop a liking for that food. Fun fact, this is why children often have a preference for high energy density foods over healthier options. We can leverage positive associative learning to develop a preference for a new food. Pairing new foods with familiar ones can actually increase acceptance and preference for that new unfamiliar food because our brains associate the new food with the positive experience of the familiar one. For example, a 2015 study looked at ways to increase children's liking and willingness to eat Brussels sprouts through associative learning. These children were given 2 new-to-them vegetables, either Brussels sprouts as the bitter vegetable or cauliflower as the control. And they got to eat them either plain, with cream cheese, or with sweetened cream cheese. While the mere exposure to Brussels sprouts was not very successful in getting kids to like them, 80% of the kids who were given Brussels sprouts plain still disliked them at the end of the study. Pairing those Brussels sprouts with flavors the kids enjoyed, either sweetened or unsweetened cream cheese, dramatically increased their liking. Instead of 20% of the kids liking the Brussels sprouts at the end of the study, it was 72%. What does this mean? If you're not enjoying that new vegetable that you're trying, don't give up. Try pairing it with one of your favorite foods or with a dip or dressing that you like, and keep trying it. In no time at all, you might be liking it. In fact, the key to liking vegetables may simply be finding a recipe that prepares them in a way that caters to your tastes. A 2019 study looked at how taste-focused labels versus health-focused labels influenced how much vegetables college cafeteria diners ate at 5 university dining halls across the United States. Taste-focused labels like herb and honey balsamic glazed turnips or sizzling Szechuan green beans with toasted garlic were designed to elevate diners' expectations of a positive taste experience when eating those vegetable dishes. The health-focused labels like healthy choice turnips and nutritious green beans were constructed using words that communicated the health benefits and nutritional qualities of those vegetables, matching how restaurants and promotional programs describe their healthiest dishes. They also compared basic non-descriptive labels like turnips or green beans as a control. Across over 137,000 diner decisions, 185 days, and 24 vegetable types. Taste-focused labels increased vegetable selection by 15% compared to the basic label, whereas health-focused labels decreased vegetable selection by 14% compared to the basic labels. Yes, expecting a positive taste experience increased how much the diners served themselves, but it also increased how much of those vegetables they ate. Diners served themselves more vegetables when they were presented with the taste-focused labels, but there was no difference in terms of how much vegetables was left on their plates and tossed out, which means they also ate more vegetables. In fact, comparing taste-focused labels versus health-focused labels, diners ate 39% more vegetables, which translated to 1.78 kilograms more vegetables per day, which just so happens to surpass our target of 5 servings of vegetables per day. Yes, a secondary finding of the study is that we eat more vegetables when they are prepared in ways that we enjoy. I mean, I don't think that's that surprising, but it's pretty cool that scientific studies back up the logical deduction that we'll eat more vegetables if we enjoy the taste of them. So overall, exposure, positive physiological effects, and pairing new to us veggies with foods and flavors we already enjoy all play important roles in how we develop preferences for different foods. And don't forget to check out my new book, Nutrivore, which not only explains the many health benefits from eating 5 servings of vegetables per day, but also includes lots of strategies like the ones I shared in this video for upping our intake. And you can order it from any online bookseller or from your local independent bookstore.